Welcome to Women and Resistance, a powerful podcast where we honor the courage, resilience, and revolutionary spirits of women across the globe. Hosted by Fubara Eneli Esq and Adesoji Iginla, we uncover untold stories of defiance against systemic oppression, whether colonialism, racism, sexism, or economic injustice. From historic icons like Winnie Mandela and Fannie Lou Hamer to today's trailblazers, we shine a light upon those shaping a more just world. This is a call to honor the past, embrace the present, and build an empowered future. Yes, greetings, and welcome back to another episode of Women and Resistance, a podcast where we highlight women who have helped shape our present world, paying homage to them. I am Adesoji Iginla, and with me as usual is the ever-brilliant Fubara Eneli Esq before she goes into character. Tonight, we are going somewhere we've not been before. And we're going into South America, Lima, Peru to be precise. And there we shall find a 20th century hero and a woman who turned a childhood wound into a worldwide revolution. By that, I refer to none other than our guest today, which is Victoria Santa Cruz. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes, Victoria Santa Cruz. For many that might not know or have heard the name before, could you just give us a quick rundown of why it is pertinent that we do remember who Santa Cruz is?
It is pertinent that we remember who we come from and we know who we are. You know, the word culture, when you think of culture, it's associated with the act of cultivating. And I was speaking to a group of young people, and I said to them, you must know what seed is within you in order to then cultivate it. You must believe in yourself. You must take the time to discover yourself, not what they say you are. So to answer the question about who I am and why I'm so honored by you and your audience and so many others who have continued to speak my name and, more importantly, carry on the work that I did, which was me carrying on the work of those who came before me. It is important to understand some history. You see, before there were nations, before there were borders, before there were names, there was rhythm. And rhythm remembers. My name is Victoria Santa Cruz, and I am not just a woman, although that I am. I am memory, I am resistance, I am rhythm, and I remember. I was born in 1922, Lima, Peru. That is what that area is called. But to understand me, you must understand the world that made me. Peru did not simply inherit inequality. It was carefully structured. Under Spanish colonial rule, there was a caste system, a hierarchy of humanity. We see this kind of disease of the mind still plaguing the world today. Not just my people, but humanity. In the hierarchy in Peru, at the top, Spaniards. I suppose they would consider themselves, even that word sticking in my throat right now, they would consider themselves white. I always pay attention to my body and the things that rise up because the body feels and keeps score. And I wonder all of a sudden, talking about this caste system, what it is that is trying to constrict my vocal cords, even as they try to silence and erase my people. Top of this hierarchy in Peru were the Spaniards. Below them, the and then the indigenous people. This is a wondrous thing going on.
Grab a glass of water.
This is not, it's physical and yet it's not. As my words struggle to come out, so did my people have to struggle. So do my people still struggle. At the bottom were the Black people, my people. But it did not stop there. They created names, categories, fractions of identity. Mulatto, Zambo, Morisco. A system designed to measure how far you were from whiteness. Whiteness being the goal. And over time, Blackness itself became something to erase. By the time I was born, slavery had ended, at least the formal slavery. But its logic had not. Afro-Peruvians had once been a major presence, especially in Lima, Peru. But by the 20th century, we were being written out of the nation. And then came something even more powerful than chains. If you can take a moment to consider that there can be a slavery more powerful than being bound up physically. Can you hear it? Silent. The last census that counted Afro-Peruvians was in 1940. I was 18 years old. After that, we disappeared from the data, disappeared from the official story, from the identity of Peru itself. Like we did not exist. But I, Victoria Santa Cruz, I was born into resistance. I was born into rhythm. I am rhythm. My father, Nicomedes Santa Cruz Aparicio. My mother, Victoria Gamaria Ramirez. My father was brilliant. Maybe today he would be considered an ethnographer. My mother, she danced. Not for performance, but because her body remembered. We were 10 children, and among us was my brother, Nicomedes Santa Cruz, a poet, a thinker, a cultural force. And together, we would help bring a people back into visibility. We would break through that forced silence, that forced invisibility. But let me tell you, you alluded to it when you were introducing me, a wound. You know, so much of what people deal with as adults started in childhood.
Yeah.
5 years old. Can you think back to being 5 years old? Not a care in the world, surrounded by family, playing, laughing. I was free. And then a white girl moved into our neighborhood. And I was out playing with my friends when this girl showed up, and she looked at my friends and she said, "If the Black girl plays, I leave." And I thought to myself, she just showed up and she's going to make demands? These are my friends. But then I saw my friends choose.
5?
That Black girl she was referring to, that was me. When did you first know that you were different? And in that moment, I learned that the world had already named me. They called me Black. They shouted it. But their lack, their rejection, shame, fear, wanted to disappear, acceptable. Accept something inside me refused. So I repeated it. Negra, till it changed. Yes, they used it to wound it to name myself. Negra soy. Negra soy. Negra soy. Say it with me. Negra soy. And now I have the key. I am acceptable just as I am. Because that wound, those words designed to hurt me, sent me into self-discovery. And now I can cultivate who I am. So powerful. That moment when I came to myself, to an understanding of myself, guided and guarded by my family and my ancestors and the rhythm that I had found within me, loving this Black skin and this hair and this nose and these lips, that moment became my work. because I understood something, that if I did not define myself, the world would erase me. So I created. 1958, my brother and I, we founded Kumanana, a mixture of Black and Spanish, because that is what Peru is. And at a time when they said Black culture had disappeared, our African culture had disappeared, we proved, no, it had not. You may have tried to choke us, to constrict our throats, to bind our bodies, to bind our minds, but we proved it had not. We revived Lando. We revived Festejo. We revived Samuneca. We told stories of slavery, yes, because that was part of what we had experienced. But we told stories of resistance, and we told stories of our humanity, and we told stories of our lives as Afro-Peruvians. I wrote Mulatto, and we created Black theater, not entertainment. This is not to tickle people's fancies. This was about restoration. Can you imagine another little girl who had also heard the words negra in a way as to insult her and denigrate her? Can you imagine her now sitting wide-eyed in awe as she sees a stage of beautiful Afro-Peruvian men and women dancing, moving, speaking, loving who we are? Can you imagine what impact that has on her or that little boy? But I was not done. At age 42, I left Peru. I went to Paris to study. I know that you have spoken to other people who somehow made their way to Paris too.
Paris, yeah.
And I enrolled at the University of the Theater of Nations. I worked with Jean-Louis Barrault, with Eugene Ionesco. I worked with Maurice Behart, and I learned about a woman you should talk to if you have not yet, Catherine Dunham. Because before me, Catherine Dunham had done for the Afro-Americans what I would do for the Afro-Peruvians. See, we are all connected. But my greatest lessons came from the land of my people. I traveled to the continent of Africa, Senegal, Mali, Nigeria. And there I encountered something I had always known within me. The rhythm is not learned. The rhythm is remembered. Called it ancestral memory. But see, you have to, it's the spirit. You have to shut out the noise. It's that seed within. Sharpen your inner hearing. Allow your body the freedom to feel the sensations and move unpoliced. Give room for your ancestral memory. Nowadays, too much noise, too much of everything from everywhere makes it hard for you to connect, you see. When I returned from my sojourn to the land of my people, I rose in a different way. I led national institutions. I represented Peru globally. A Black woman. Negra soy. In power. And here come the people with their labels. Are you a Marxist? Am I a what? Before Marx, there was rhythm. Did I not tell you about ancestral memory? Do you understand what I'm saying? I rejected the labels. I don't need a label. Not because I was apolitical, but because I was working at a deeper level. I once said, I was born Black. I was born a woman. And later, being Latin American also presented an obstacle, and yet refused to be confined, to be defined, to be restricted by categories. What is with you people and these labels? Is she a feminist? Is she a Marxist? Who is Karl Marx compared to my people? And yet I know some of us embrace these labels. But we must go deeper. What I did was to reclaim my African identity. to center African heritage, to challenge erasure. Is that not political? Whether I named it or not? Some ask, well, were you harassed? Were you surveilled? To ask that is to not understand a society that wrote us out of the census. No clear record has existed or has been found to exist to show that I was necessarily being surveilled in that way. But I would tell you this, and this is common sense, in a society built on invisibility, not by accident, structured invisibility, you better believe visibility is a disruption. And I, my brother, and so many that we had the honor of working with, we disrupted everything. Let us speak of the body, of hair in Peru. Straight hair was beauty. I see some of you, my sisters today, you can't get it straight enough. European features were the ideal. Blackness was to be softened, maybe scrubbed away, diluted, hidden. But I stood on stage as I am, blackness, hair and all. And through my work, through Me Gritaron Negra, the poem that took on a force of its own, I reclaimed the face, the body, the hair. And Afro-Peruvian women began to see themselves differently. Can I tell you that if I so chose, I could wear this hair in 20 different ways in 20 minutes? What is not to love? And through our work, not through campaigns, through our work, through presence, through pride, Peruvian men and women, little girls and little boys, walked a little taller, their footsteps a little surer, the eyes with which they saw themselves suddenly clear, no longer seeing themselves through the filter of ideals that were set up to diminish their humanity. How do you see yourself? Oh, Peruvians, we were once many. During colonial times, over 100,000 Africans were brought to Peru. In Lima, Black people, we were central to life. Then we disappeared from the records. Silence after 1940. But today, we are counted again. In 2017, 800,000 identified as Afro-Peruvian, and many more still reclaiming that identity today. Of course, there's still some who would rather be mestizos and mulatto and so on. I think you had one of your leaders in the United States. He claimed now he's Italian and Spanish. He has forgotten his African roots in his bloodline from Cuba.
Of Spanish descent.
Peru was not always an easy place for us to live. And in 1982, left and I moved to the United States of America. And I taught at Carnegie Mellon University. But you have to go and read up about the work that I did at the Olympics that was in Mexico, where we got to showcase Afro-Peruvian culture on a global stage.
Mexico 68. You are listening to Women and Resistance with Aya Fubara Eneli Esq and Adesoji Iginla, where we honor the voices of women who have shaped history through courage and defiance. If you're finding these stories inspiring, take a moment to subscribe, share, and support this platform. Together, we amplify the voices that deserve to be heard. Now, back to the conversation.
Yes, from 1982 to 1999, I taught rhythm. I would give my students exercises to do to cause them to go within. Rhythm not as performance, but as life, as healing, and as truth. The thought comes to mind. Have you ever seen a mother bringing forth a child? What informs her on how to move, how the body knows how to help push the baby down? Ancestral memories. Lived my life in such a way that I was part of something larger than the box they would try to put us in Peru. I had a global African consciousness. In those times, we called it a Black consciousness. And I shared space with thinkers, artists, and movements. Another one that maybe you should talk to, Maya Angelou. Yes, she too. Some don't know this. She too was a dancer. I love to attend global Black cultural gatherings because in those gatherings, you could clearly see that we were not isolated, that we are all interconnected. Twerking, any of the dance moves of your young people today, I can show you a connection to our ancestral roots that we have to remember. Today, my work is honored, it is celebrated, it is remembered. Though Afro-Peruvians are still only now considered something like 3.6% of the nation, my legacy was declared a cultural heritage in Peru. In fact, I could read to you some of what was said.
Citation.
They said, I don't want to read the whole thing, so I have to choose a part that I want to share with you. I will start in this place. Similarly, Victoria Santa Cruz sought to place the Afro-Peruvian population and their contributions to the construction of a national culture at the center of attention, from the times of slavery to the long integration that followed their emancipation. Integration. In this sense, it aimed to reposition the Afro-Peruvian population from the margins to the core of cultural creation processes. Thus, she proposed that the ancestor of the Zamacuca and therefore of the Marinera is the Lando dance derived from the Angolan Londu. To this end, she considered it necessary to revive and create this rhythm, which she by starting from the original African rhythm, but in her own words, by appealing to an ancestral memory inscribed in bodily expression itself. This approach, regardless of the value placed on this historical proposal, essentially positions her as a creator of Afro-Peruvian expression dedicated to placing this cultural and population sector in a prominent or at least visible role in Peruvian cultural history. They go on to say that through Ministerial Resolution number 338-2015-MC, Directive for the Declaration of the Manifestations of Intangible Cultural Heritage and the Work of Great Masters, Wise Men, and Creators as Cultural Heritage of the Nation, and Declaration of Cultural Interest, it is approved in which the guidelines and rules of the processing of the file for the Declaration of Cultural Heritage of the Nation of the manifestations of intangible cultural heritage are established. And they go on to say that they declare the manifestations of this intangible cultural heritage as cultural heritage of the nation, as well as its publication in the official newspaper, El Peruano. And the citation goes on and on. And they said, to declare as cultural heritage of the nation in the field of works of great masters, wise men, and creators, the work of Victoria Eugenia Santa Cruz Gamara, which constitutes a coherent whole throughout her life and professional trajectory, interested in giving a place and a voice to a sector of the national population of which she stands as a prominent representative, uniting historical and ethnographic research with a creative vein, inspired at the same time by her own family history and creating with this a repertoire of theatrical, musical, and dance expressions of recognized aesthetic richness, at the same time novel and inspired by diverse traditions, some of them almost extinct, helping to give visibility to this rediscovered contingent of manifestations of the intangible Afro-Peruvian cultural heritage to which she contributed a charge of criticism and social vindication. And this was done in honor of the centenary year of my birth.
100 years.
I was fortunate to live a very long life. After my time in the United States, I did return to Peru. My centennial was commemorated nationally. My work is still studied globally, and my poem has been translated into so many languages and is performed across continents. Mi Gritaron Negra has become a protest, a declaration, a liberation for sure. During these global gatherings, these global movements for Black life, my voice returned. Not because I was present, although I was, but because truth travels.
It was invoked.
Today, Afro-Peruvian culture is rising. There are festivals, education, recognition. But I must say, the work is not done. And just like we were almost erased, if we do not stay vigilant, we could be erased again. Some ask, well, did you marry? Did you have children? All of these things have importance, but we all have a purpose to which we have been born into. And my life was dedicated to the upliftment of my people and as a consequence of humanity as a whole. My children are my students, too numerous to count, and my legacy is my work. I always used to say this, and this is particularly important to think about in these times that we live in. There is no revolution without evolution. Let me say that again. And let your audience tell me what they make of that statement. There is no revolution without evolution. How are you evolving? See, it is the trap of those who wish to end our existence for you to only fight outside. You must transform from within. Negra soy. Yes. And when you go within and begin to embrace that transformation, that evolution, the rhythm on the inside, and you will start to move and feel and sense and hear and understand and speak an evolved human being, because you have first conquered that fight within. You have first done the work to cultivate that which is on the inside. It begins on the inside. You can't stay so focused on fighting the enemy without, when there has been no internal transformation, no evolution. They tried to erase us. They are still trying. We remained. Do you know that in Peru, they tried to ban the drum?
Sounds familiar.
But we remain. We remain in the drum. We remain in our bodies. We remain in our hair. You try to tame it and it comes back. We remain in our voice, but we must fight to use that voice. I am not just a historical figure, something to put on a shelf and dust off every now and then. I am a presence. I am resistance. I am rhythm. I am connected with you. You are connected with me. We are connected to our ancestors and to our roots, whether we name them or not. I am Victoria Santa Cruz. Thought I was done, but in my spirit, I see a little girl. with dark skin. She's trying to find her way, but the tears are clouding her vision and she's confused. Someone told her, step back. I was fortunate to have the family that I was born into. Can you commit today to be that guide, that guard for all the Black children stumbling in confusion, blinded by a hate that has been put on them like a veil, hatred of themselves? Can you help show them the path? Can you help clear their vision? Can you help them go within and evolve? Maybe that little girl is you. Maybe that little boy is you. Don't just hear my words. What will you do differently? Because today you heard about Victoria Santa Cruz and the work that I did to carry on ancestral memory.
Yes, thank you, thank you. What else can I say to that? Yeah, you said rhythm is memory. You not only took a wound at the age of 5 and you turned the wound into a revolution that the world now celebrates you for. We continue to do the work here. Your brilliance is celebrated. As you can read the chat, people are glad to have made their acquaintance with Victoria Santa Cruz, and as they've done with others and will continue to do in the course of this series. There is one thing I wanted to highlight when you talked about the banning of the drum. Again, when you take away the drum, you're taking away rhythm. So it's a form of erasure, So the fact that you are able to, with the help of your family, of course, stand up and say, listen, I am not only going to help heal myself, but I'm also going to help heal people that look like me and people that are coming after me. That we must commend you for, and we thank you and celebrate you. And this series continues next week. It will be the turn of La Mula's Res Solitude. Yes, again.
Ancestral memory.
Exactly. So La Mulatres Solitude will be taking center stage next week. But for this week, I want to first of all thank people who have been generous with their gifts, and that helps to keep the light on, as they would say. It also means you find value in what we do here. We're not only doing it for ourselves, but this would live on long after we're gone, and anybody that stumbles across them would then be able to tap and go and continue the journey of discovery, as it were. So next week, it will be La Mula Tres Solitude, again following the series of why she's important to us and why it's important that we not only remember them, but also celebrate their struggle. So I want to start.
One thing I would like to add, for those who had never heard of me, there are some interviews of me on, what do you people call it, the YouTube?
YouTube.
And there is a book of writings that came out, I believe, in 2023. I have a collection of some of my work.
Anthologies, yeah.
Yes. And it is important I want to thank you for creating this opportunity for me and so many of my sisters who've gone before me, who lived during my time, some after my time, for our work to be remembered. Because if we don't remember the work that has been done, then you think you have to start over, or you think it cannot be done, or it has never been done. And it holds us back. And so get these writings, read for yourself, share with the young children, open up their minds while we still can. There is still much work to do by Africans across the expanse of this world. And for me, I was an activist, not just for Afro-Peruvians, not just for Africans, but for humanity as a whole. And this is work that I hope and I pray that more would link hands and hearts to do. Yes, thank you.
Yes, you've heard it from Miss Cruz. Spread the word. Let's share, subscribe. There's an audio version. For those who are not able to join us during the live version, you go send a link to the audio version to them once it becomes available on all audio podcast platforms. And that's one way of engendering the notion of continuity. As Ms. Cruz said, rhythm, the way we move, is our memory. So until next week, it's from Ms. Cruz.
No revolution without evolution.
Heard it. Thank you very much. And to our very lively audience typing away, I would like to thank you from the bottom of my heart for coming and joining us. We're fast building a community here. I feel I am, indebted to all of you in more ways than one. So until next week, it's good night and God bless. That is it for this episode of Women and Resistance. Thank you for joining us in amplifying the voices of women who challenged injustice and changed the course of history. Be sure to subscribe, share, and continue the conversation. Together, remember, we honor the past, act in the present, and shape the future. Until next time, stay inspired and stay in resistance.